It's kind of annoying, to be honest, to me, that it's not the best coaches that do the best in the online coaching space. It's the people who know how to market what they do. Hello. Welcome to the show. Today, we are going to dive into an interesting topic, I think, for a lot of you. What is going on in the online coaching space in 2025? So I have an incredible guest here with you. And Sarah, I'm just going to punt that question right on over to you before we even introduce you or dive in. What is your number one prediction that's going to happen in the online coaching space this year?
Ooh, this is such a great question. One thing that we've definitely been seeing is trending so much more is high quality content. And high quality content mixed with so much more specificity in terms of how people are communicating to their ideal clients. And I've seen that. I mean, I've been in the online space since 2015, so it's been like 10 years. And we've seen so many trends going up and down for so long. And this year it's looking like content is going to be a very, very big piece of what people are doing, content and funnels. I think specifically, and getting the most specific that you possibly can about your ideal client is what we're all about this year.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I can't wait to dive into this with you because I agree with those things. And I think it's going to be a piece that people either fully embrace or they kind of like push back against. So I'm excited to dive into like what that actually means and how people can integrate that. But today, the form of this conversation, I just want to let you guys know, is going to be like you are in the inside on the couch with me and Sarah as if we're just having a conversation as friends. And we do this. We mastermind, Sarah and I mastermind together. We connect over WhatsApp regularly together. So we're having these conversations. And I really wanted to bring this conversation specifically to the show because I think you guys will get a lot from it. So before we even go any deeper, I want to introduce Sarah so you understand who is on the line with me. Sarah and I met about 4 years ago now, back in a mastermind together. Yeah. And Sarah's been, as she said, an online coach since 2015, you said, or 16, 15. Yeah. She's been in the space for a while. It's created over $2 million in online sales, is a certified business coach and specializes in messaging, positioning, funnels, and kind of just that premium, how to position yourself as a premium coach in this space. Did I get all of that, Sarah, correctly?
I think that's great. Yeah, thank you so much. That was a lovely introduction.
Awesome. Well, I'm happy to have you here. And let's just continue riffing on this conversation. So, funnels, specificity, content, that's kind of like where you see things going. What do you see changing? Because you and I have talked about this behind the scenes a lot in terms of like, I've been a coach since 2013, but kind of didn't come into the online space until 2020. And since 2020, I've like, it feels like rapid fire in my opinion of like, I like feel like I'm just getting the handle on stuff. And then it's like, it changes and something shifts. And I'm like, okay, now we're on to a different thing. So like being in this space for so long, you've probably seen like tons of iterations and changes, but what have you seen specifically in the last year that's changed in the online coaching space specifically?
Ooh, I love this question. And I think one of the reasons why I love this question so much is because I see some of my clients understand it and get it, and they like do so well. And so I have been amazed, like on a positive note, I've been amazed at the types of results that coaches can get online. And so I've had clients now who are like relationship coaches making $20,000, $30,000 a month.
Yeah.
I've had clients who are trauma coaches, same thing, $30,000 a month consistently. And so health coaches making, $17,000, $20,000 a month, like really, really amazing things. And none of them are like massive experts in what they do. And I love it. And I love to see it for them. But what I've also noticed is with a lot of those people, they've truly mastered the art of content and really mastered the art of content creation for themselves. I would say that that's probably been one of the biggest things that we've seen in terms of a shift in the online space. I think that funnels are always going to be around. Funnels are always going to work, but to have the funnels work in combination with just very strong brand awareness and positioning for content, I think that's going to be more of the name of the game in 2025. That and really like making sure that you are creating a sense of community. I think that there are a lot of people, especially like way back. So because I've been around since 2015, I feel like a lot of people, could just get away with like static content with images, having an image with a quote on it, let's say, for example. And I think people are still trying to do that in 2025. And it just lies completely flat.
Yeah. Okay, cool. There's so many pieces I want to unpack in there. So
Yeah.
the first one is just around like what you've seen around people who are having the kind of results that we see on, business coaches highlight reels. Like my client had a 20K month,
Yeah.
30K month. Like what is the secret to those people? And it's the content creation. And I think this is such an important piece to double click on because it's kind of annoying, to be honest, to me, that it's not the best coaches that do the best in the online coaching space. It's the people who know how to market what they do. And if we kind of like pull that back and you kind of get out of like, well, I've done this work myself, is like get out of the that annoyance piece or like the piece around judging other people around, them creating more revenue or results outwardly with maybe not as much experience. But it's no different than any other industry. It's like branding, marketing, positioning, right? And it makes sense that that's what's happening in the coaching space because it's becoming a more saturated industry. More people are becoming coaches. More people are in the online space. So it's becoming more competitive. And in any competitive market, branding and positioning becomes more and more important. So I just love that you're highlighting that for us because it's not enough to just be a great coach and to know you're a great coach and to say you're a great coach. It's like you have to learn how to talk about your results and how you help people. And I think you have to really, this is my opinion on it, is center the client, not you in all of that. So do you have anything to add to that or like, in terms of the like what actually makes good positioning and marketing?
The strategies, all of the different strategies still work and they're still like super, super effective. So we have the same types of strategies that we've had since 2020,
Mm-hmm.
still working to this day in 2025. But it's just that when you're not pairing strategies with really, really great content and like with something that's actually sellable, I think that that's another thing that's really helpful. Ooh, and another thing that we've noticed too is that people are starting to like really understand what is the difference between like actual coaching that they're going to be receiving and people who are just kind of fluff, which is great, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
at the same time, there you want to make sure that you have a solid coach that you're investing in, and so that's
Yeah.
another thing that I'm seeing is that when people aren't confident in themselves,
Yeah.
and when they're not projecting that confidence in their content, you
Yeah.
can tell those things as well. And so that's one of the first things in terms of like brand positioning and authority is like you need to be sold on yourself. And
Mhm.
what I would say there too is that you can totally fake it until you make it. And so a lot of people really struggle with imposter syndrome there. But
Mhm.
on a daily basis, I would say you really need to start to get behind why it is that you're doing what you're doing and why you deserve to be one of the top people in the space.
Yes.
If you don't, and if you're not understanding that, and if you're not putting yourself out there in that way, you're not going to be communicating to the right people who want to see that type of confidence in the coach
Yeah.
that they have. And so that's why having strategies that aren't just about like marketing, but also strategies that are energetic, strategies that are about building your confidence from within. Those types of things are going to be even more important now because
Mhm.
you can no longer just post a whole bunch of like really nice fancy quotes and hide behind quotes in
Mhm.
order to sell yourself. You really need to get vulnerable.
And again, it's like you have to like in a competitive space, people have lots of options. And so, I think, yeah, it's gonna take, if you're new, some time to build that inner confidence, but there are ways to do that that can help you get behind yourself. And I think what you spoke to is like having that bigger why. I call that like playing the infinite game of like really just being committed to the process and being committed to, like, with my clients, I do these things called soulful sales cycles. So it's like a 30-day cycle, and then we iterate and we move forward. And it's interesting to watch people, no matter how many times I say it, is like, it's not about this one cycle. You can't think about this as like a launch. You have to think about it as this iterative process that builds momentum over time. People don't get it. They want to see results in the first cycle.
Yeah.
And then when they don't, it's like, well, it's not working. And it's like, I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but like this idea of like testing and refining and just trying things, because different, yeah, there's the strategies that are kind of like tried, tested, and true. But then in the application, it's going to be different depending on who you're talking to, who you are, what your energetics are, all those things. So, what are your thoughts around like just that idea around like not needing to get it right the first time, and really, I guess you could say, like iterating as you go?
Yeah, you need to get your feet wet, and you need to keep on going and like keep on testing different ways of getting in front of the right audience. And I think that one thing that I also see a lot of coaches getting stuck with is this whole idea of well, this is what I want to help people with, and this is the only thing that I want to talk to them about.
Mm-hmm.
And that really just pigeonholes them, because then it's just like, in order for you to have a business, right, you need to have something that's marketable and sellable. And so that doesn't necessarily mean that every single health coach needs to promote weight loss, but it does mean that if you're a health coach and your ideal client, let's say, for example, has a hormone imbalance, maybe a part of that desire for them for that hormone imbalance is to be able to lose a little bit more weight. And so I think that what I also see is a lot of people just being like, oh, well, I just want to talk about this specific thing. And so once again, it comes back to what you were saying in terms of like, it's very you focused. And you think, and I think a lot of people will say like, oh, well, that's in the best interest of the client, because, let's say, like, just even given the weight loss industry as an example, like the weight loss industry is horrible. So it's in the best interest of the client if I don't talk to people about how they want to lose weight, but you're really doing yourself and your client a disservice
Yeah.
by not speaking about the things that they truly need to hear. Because if you don't have something, if you're not presenting people with a desire that they actually want for themselves and a problem that they very legitimately feel for themselves,
Mm-hmm.
people aren't going to book a call with you. People aren't going to buy from you. And so
Yeah.
what I often tell my clients is you want to sell people what they want, but then ultimately give them not just what they want, but also what they need. And so
Yes.
if you want to sell self-love, or if you want to help people with self-love, that's great. But like, if you're packaging self-love in terms of a marketing perspective, you want to make sure that you're very careful into consideration with like, what is the symptom that they're
Yes.
struggling with when it comes to why don't they have self-love right now? And I
Mm-hmm.
think that if you're not willing to do that as a coach, I mean, I can kind of get into it, even like a side conversation about this in terms of
Yeah.
like, I think a lot of people want to be coaches. And
Mm-hmm.
I think very few of those people are it initially, because I do think people come around, but I think initially a lot of those people just have a lot of roadblocks and mindset blocks around being a business owner, because
Mm-hmm.
being a coach and being a business owner who runs a successful coaching business require two completely different mindsets.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we could riff on this forever because I see this as well. And I mean, I've gone through it myself as well. It's like
Yeah.
the kind of the people that I work with, they tend to be really like purpose driven, impact driven individuals. So they're coming
Yeah.
into their work with a real vision, desire, and passion for what they're doing, which is so beautiful. But it gets like muddied because then it becomes they're using their business to express purely their purpose instead of using their business as a vehicle to do that, which is two different things. Because if it's just about expressing your purpose and doing what you love and following your passions, then that's just like a hobby. And that's okay. And you can do that. And that's totally fine. But what you're talking about is really taking that like CEO mindset and applying your passion and purpose into a business and a business model. And that takes kind of getting out of your way sometimes. And, it not just being about you and about what you want to do and about how you want to position it, but really starting with your client in mind and thinking about, what they want, what they need to hear, and, everything that we're talking about. So yes, I 100% agree with you on that. And it's interesting to hear you saying that, like, now more than ever, that's becoming more important to do that and get more specific. So maybe we can talk about specificity, because that was one of the other points you brought up. You were talking about what we were just talking about, and then specificity, and then I'm holding community as well that we want to dive into.
Yeah. And so with the specificity piece of it, it really is about like, once again, generalizations and having just like a whole bunch of generalizations in your content in terms of who it is that you're speaking to. What we're seeing is just like, once again, flopping, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so many people are just like, oh, well, I just want to help people with confidence.
Mm-hmm.
Or I'll have clients who are like, I do have an ideal client. This is her name. And like, these are all of the things about her. And then I see the content and I'm like, this content could literally speak to anyone. It could speak to, like the 380 million people in the United States of America, right? Like,
Yeah.
how is this speaking to that one person that you really want to talk to? And so one big piece of that is coming up with scenarios and like very real life, very specific scenarios that an ideal client would go through. Let's say, for example, from when they wake up in the morning, what they're eating, how they're waking up in the morning, how they're going about their day, what they're feeling when they're going about their day, right? To kind of just like get under people's skin. And I think that for me in specific, because I teach more like high ticket coaching. So I teach women how to sign on high paying clients that are going to pay them above $2,000. And most of my clients are actually in between like $3,000 to $5,000 packages. Like you really need to get so much more specific with who it is that you're speaking to. And one thing that I found really interesting is that generally speaking, the higher or the higher up that someone is on the emotional scale. And so if no one here knows what the emotional scale is, I highly recommend that you look it up because it's super helpful. It's something that I teach inside of my programs as well. But the higher up you are on the emotional scale, the higher you feel like you can get. But also what's really interesting is that the less of a jump to get from, let's say, for example, a really, really great place on the emotional scale, which is, let's say, contentment. If someone wants to go from contentment to joy, to absolute joy and like euphoria, they're going to pay more money to you and for you to get that little piece more than they are or than someone else is who's really low on the emotional scale. So let's say for example, someone who feels like really hopeless and angry and jealous all of the time, for them to move like 5 or 6 steps up on their emotional scale, they're probably going to pay you less. And when we start to understand what it is that people are truly looking for, this kind of goes also in line with the whole idea of just like, well, if you're paying an electrician, you're not actually paying them for the amount of time that they're, like cutting a wire. You're paying them for the amount of knowledge that they know in terms of which wire that they need to cut. Right. And so when we get so highly specific about who it is that we're helping and how we can help them with their specific problems, it just opens up so many more doors to be able to charge more and ultimately to be able to run so much more of a profitable business.
And I think what's interesting about what you just shared about the emotional scale piece is when you really get so for the people that are like, I just want to help people with confidence. Okay. Like that's fine. Like you can do that work. But the key is if you can understand what Sara's talking about, then you can hone in on the group that you're going to be able to help the most. And that is going to be the highest leverage group for you. Because sometimes I see people who, they really like have this big mission and they want to help people, but they're going after people who don't have the resources necessarily as a whole to pay them what they want to make. And so, like, for example, it's like I see this in the money space a lot, in the like financial coaching space, is that, there's people who are struggling with money, right? Who are like really struggling with money. It's going to be a lot harder to get those people to pay you like high ticket prices than say if you work with someone who's like got a 6-figure job, but they just like, they're not good with their money. and you can help them like really like dial that in. You can do the same work, but just with a different ideal client group, and make it so much easier for you to build a business around.
Ooh, I love that. Yes, exactly. Exactly. And then it comes down to, well, how is the content for the six-figure owner going to be different from the content for, the general person who needs to save more money? What are the things that the six-figure owner struggles with more, right? So let's say, for example, like they're probably trying to keep up with their social class and their, like their social status. And so talking to those types of things is also going to repel the person who has no idea what those scenarios are because they've never lived through them. And so that's where content specificity really does come into play to make sure that you're talking to someone where they feel validated, because the internet right now is just so inundated with content, and unfortunately it's also inundated with like really awful content. Like I'm sure that we're both like, I'm sure that anyone here could probably attest and agree to that, because anyone can be a content creator. Like literally anyone could go onto an app and post content on it and try to get like, a lot of views for content, and a lot of content out there is really really bad. And so if you can filter through the noise, what I'm also seeing for a lot of my clients is once you filter through the noise, you can actually go viral and you can get a lot of reach, also because of content quality.
Let's dig into that before we move on to community a bit, because, this idea around there being like so much content, you'll hear stats around like organic reach is going down on platforms. There's so much content out there. You hear all these things about it, right? And it doesn't mean that people can't be successful on those platforms. It's just learning how to be successful on these platforms. I have a question for you because,
Yeah.
in terms of like people's attention spans, well, okay, so this is one of the myths that I've seen floating around recently, and so you can debunk it for me or not, is that like educational content is dying. So this like longer, more like say, just educational content that people can find by going to Chat GPT or Googling or whatever, is like that kind of content is dying. What would you say about that?
I wouldn't say it's necessarily dying, because I think that there are still a lot of people who like it and utilize it, but I think it's overdone. And I think that that's the reason why people probably say that it's dead or that it's dying. And that's simply because it's so easy. It's honestly so easy to just be like, here's the 5 steps that you need in order to start a morning routine, and if people have seen it over and over and over again, and if it's very easy for someone to do, it's probably now been something that's completely oversaturated. Versus if you can do it from your perspective of, once again, your ideal client or your own perspective, and really put it into a place of authority, that's when it becomes so much more valuable as a piece of content. My clients still do a lot of educational stuff, and I think it really works to balance it out. And I think that especially what we're seeing now is there's specific forms of content that do different things in accounts. And not to mention that I think another really interesting thing is there's one thing for like gurus or marketing gurus, which we technically are too, right? But like it's one thing for a marketing guru to tell you something, but it's something entirely different for you to analyze the data from your own business. And so what I know to be true is that when my clients come to me and they book calls with me and they're so excited to work with me, a lot of what they tell me is like, you actually seem like you know what you're talking about when it comes to strategy, right? And so where does that come from? It comes from me having educational content, right? And so maybe it's not as good for reach anymore, but it's definitely still good for conversions, because obviously your ideal clients, they want to feel confident in what it is that you know. So it's all about like what metrics are the most important to analyze right now too.
Good point. And so, okay, so if educational content in your mind is like not dead, it serves a purpose to build authority, and showcase what you know. But your take on it is like, don't just like put in like something to Chat GPT and spit it out. Make sure you're putting it in your perspective, and like, how you have come to own that wisdom. And then what kind of content do you see doing the best right now, if we were to say maybe like growing an account? Say someone's
Yeah.
wanting to like grow their account with ideal clients. What kind of content do you see doing the best?
Okay, so this is a really interesting question that's coming like literally right now, and I'm curious because I'd love to have this conversation right now and then have this conversation in July.
Okay. We'll have
and,
you back.
and
Yeah.
yeah, we'll come back to this exact conversation.
Yeah.
So the reason why I find it so interesting right now is, in all honesty, in my business, I did not actually focus on content a whole bunch to make my first $2.5 million. Like, I've just kind of relied on repurposing content. I've relied on not really paying that much attention to content. Haven't really relied on paying a lot of attention to like how often I post. I would only post like 3 times a week, things like that. I still made like multiple 6 figures a year. And like, I got my business all the way up to 80K a month by doing those things. But with that, all of that being said, what we're also noticing is that ads are getting more expensive, especially in the B2B space. And so, I have now like kind of scaled back a little bit of my other spends and just kind of focused a little bit more on content. And so what we're noticing, my team and I have done like a really big content overhaul where we're now posting more because we're trying to find out the trends for my specific profile. And I literally just had this conversation a few weeks ago with my content manager where I was like, which metric do we want to be targeting? Right? Because there's so many different metrics that you can target with content. You can target profile visits. So how many people are actually like clicking over when they view your content, clicking over to your profile? You can target for link visits. So how many people are clicking on your link? You can target for follows. You can target for engagements. You can target for views and reach. And you can target for like shares. And what we decided for my specific business, and I think that this is something that we're going to decide unanimously for most of our clients' coaching businesses, is that the most important targets would be profile visits and reach. And I think that shares and saves, definitely not likes and follows. I don't think that those are really helpful metrics anymore. They used to be years ago, right? But now there's so many different metrics that are much better to look at, because even if you think about it, Kristin, I don't know if you've ever thought about this recently, but like most of the coaches that I quote unquote follow, I don't actually hit follow on them.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
And not to mention, not only do I not hit follow, I don't like their stuff, I don't save their stuff. It's only like I go through my Explore feed, let's say, for example, and I'm hooked on something on my Explore feed. And I'm like, okay, who is this person? So I'll stalk them on their podcast. I'll like go into their email list, all of those types of things. The only thing that I usually do, and this is, I think, is a really important metric for like whether or not someone's actually actively engaging with your stuff, is I will use, if someone has a ManyChat automation, or if someone is just like, comment this word below and I'll send you this thing. Yeah. If I want that thing, I'm going to comment that word. Yeah. And so that's literally one of the only things that I personally use when I'm looking for a new coach, is I will engage in specific conversion focused things. And so that's why I feel like engagement, profile visits, and reach are actually the 3 top metrics that you're going to be wanting to look for. And I think that other people are kind of just like, well, I want follows or I want virality. And virality oftentimes is actually it's not even that helpful for your business.
It can be like counterintuitive. It's like counterproductive, actually. Yeah.
It is. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Because if you're going viral with the wrong videos that have nothing to do with your brand and nothing to do with your ideal client, you're just going to get thousands of people on your profile, and it's going to mess with all of your other metrics.
Yeah. And they just don't buy. I've had that happen to clients before, and it's so frustrating because they get excited about the possibility. And then it's just like, this is not working.
And they'll do anything to go viral. And it's really sad and unfortunate. I actually had a client who, when she started working with me, she was just like, she was doing Facebook ads. So she was helping people do ads. Like she was an ads manager. And she had a video about how she got into an accident or something like that and like injured her back. And she posted that video onto that account, and that video went viral. And so she got thousands and thousands of new followers, but she was just like, none of those people bought from me because they weren't interested in my ads. And so now she was stuck with all of these thousands of followers that she had to remove because none of them actually wanted to buy from her, and they were messing up with her algorithm. They were messing up with her reach. And so creating things just for the sake of them going viral is actually like very detrimental to like the growth and the profitability of your content as well.
Yeah. And that's where like sometimes those metrics that we want to see, like the likes or the follows, is like, it's like, do not chase those. Is like, find the things that actually make a difference. And I know we were going to talk about community, but I actually think because we've got about 5 minutes left in our conversation, talking about funnels might be more interesting
Oh,
given what we're talking about, because that whole idea around the many chat automation and the back end funnel from social, I think is like so important now. And my opinion on it is that people want to engage over a longer period of time. Some people are going to be ready to buy right away, but most people are going to do what you said you were going to do, is you're going to like be stalking them. You might not even be following them. You're going to want a way to kind of like get behind the scenes and see what they're all about, which is where the ManyChat automation comes in really handy, because you can get people on your list. You can then have a welcome sequence. You can then nurture them there and then get them onto a call or whatever your conversion is from there. So tell me in 5 minutes, tell me all about your funnel strategy.
yeah, I love this question. I'm actually going to have a ManyChat interview that's coming out.
Oh, cool.
Probably in a few weeks. They're just putting like the final touches on it. And that's going to describe a little bit of it as well. But basically what we've done and what has been really helpful, and now what we're actually like playing around with, so this is going to be like the 6 month thing, is a lot more of these automations that are coming through. And so the initial funnel that we have is people come from an ad, they respond a specific word to the ad. Once they do that, the ManyChat automation grabs their email, gets them into an email funnel, and then we have another question that gets sent after that. And then through a series of other questions, we can either book a call with someone or like have them like purchase a passive income product or something like that. So that's our main funnel. And what I find is that about probably 50% of clients just like don't even respond to the DMs, because some people aren't DM people, right? But they do convert through email. And so about 50% of people are converting through email. And then the other 50% of people love DMs. And they love the back and forth conversation. And then they end up converting through a sales call through after having a DM conversation. But what we're also experimenting with right now, just because you want to have like so many different multiple touch points and you really want to showcase your authority, is we're actually experimenting with just doing like absolutely free Google documents that we're sending out as ManyChat automations. And so probably at least 2 a week. So we're doing 2 a week where we are just like posting about something that's super, super valuable, to the ideal client. And then I'm just creating a document for people to consume if they comment a specific word. And so what you can also do with that, and what we're going to start to do with it, is understand like what type of documents people want more and which type of documents people don't really care about. And so the more that we do this, the more data that we're going to get. And then once that happens as well, like then we're just going to kind of ramp it up from there. But
Yeah.
those are all the funnels that we have going on. I'm not a huge fan of launching. I love more of
Mm-hmm.
like an evergreen
Me
type
too.
of vibe.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't do a lot of product launches or anything like that. That's mainly that's our strategy right now. It's been working really well.
I love the no barrier Google Doc idea. I've been experimenting with that as well. It's just like a couple of like new ideas for opt-ins or
Yeah.
freebies or messaging. And it really makes a difference, because it's like even that simple giving you your email address can be a barrier for a lot of people. So this way it's just really easy. And the thing from the business owner side of it is then there's no funnel that needs to be set up on the back end. So it's like otherwise, like that takes time, especially if you don't have a big
So much
team or
time.
anything like that. And you're always making sure it's not broken and all the things. So this way, it's like a really low lift way to test some of those pieces, which I think is, yeah, a great little takeaway for people. It's like a really easy way to dabble in this like back end funnel idea without having to put a lot of tech or pieces in place for the little bit until you learn what your audience really wants.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why we created it that way, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Love it. Thanks so much. It went by so fast. We'll
I
definitely have you
know.
back in July. And I'd love to hear your mid year update on some of this stuff. But if people want to learn more about you or in your work and what you do, where can they find you?
Yeah. So you can find me. At Sara J. Loureiro. So Sarah was without an H, J, and that's Loureiro. On Instagram, it's also sarajloureiro.com. I'm on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn, literally just Sara J. Loureiro everywhere.
Okay.
I have a fully booked checklist. So I have a 6-step framework and process that I send people through. So I actually have a 19-page guide that you can download for free. Okay. If you head over to my website or to my Instagram, you can find those there.
Awesome. Great. We'll link that all below too in the show notes for people. I appreciate it. I love having these conversations with you. We'll have more throughout the year, I know, but it was great to be able to share you and your brain and the way that you think about, just the online marketing space and just sharing your wisdom. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. Yeah. And thanks for having me. And I can't wait to kind of come back and showcase all the findings with you guys as well.
Yes, I can't wait. Okay. Bye.